Hello and welcome. I'm Lucia Rahilly, Editorial Director at McKinsey Company, and your host for this series of live webinars sponsored by the Global Thought Leadership Institute at APQC. Quick note before we start, this series is designed to give you the opportunity to engage with some of the foremost leaders and practitioners in the field of thought leadership today. We hold these webinars on a monthly cadence, and you can see our roster by following the GTLI on LinkedIn. Super easy. Go to LinkedIn right now and do it, or by visiting APQC's website at apqc.org/GTLI. You can also take a look at past webinars on our YouTube channel by searching for @GTLI-APQC. We would love this session to be as interactive as possible. We want to make this genuinely audience-back and useful. So we invite you to please send along any questions you have using the Zoom chat functionality, and I will do my best to field as many of those as possible. Today, Jeff Pundyk, publisher of Deloitte Insights. Deloitte is, of course, the behemoth professional services firm known not only as the biggest of the big four, but also for its business and tech consulting arm. Full disclosure, Jeff and I are former colleagues. I consider it my great good fortune to have overlapped very briefly with him at McKinsey lo these many years past, and he was at that time the publisher of the McKinsey Quarterly for nearly a decade, in fact, during the heady days of the dot-com boom and bust, and since then he's held a whole range of executive roles at The Economist, Techonomy, and elsewhere. Jeff is going to talk to us today about the transformation that he has been making happen at Deloitte Insights over the 5+ years he has been head honcho over there. Listen, people, Jeff is smart. He's experienced. He's a great talker, and he's like a super mensch. So if you have questions, again, I would urge you to ask. This is your opportunity. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you. That is the nicest introduction I've ever had. I think my mom might have helped write that. I love it. Thank
You
you.
can show her the recording.
Well, she's still wondering what I do for a living. So what she tells her friends is he has a big job. So that's 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 it.
My mother also, she's in the arts, and she says, why are you still doing that? What are you doing over there? Why are
She
you
has a little post-it that says Deloitte so she doesn't forget the name.
still... So thanks for being together with us today. We have so much to talk about, and as we were saying before this, I could talk to Jeff Pundyk for 7 hours. So let's get started, and let's just start with some context. So as I mentioned, Jeff, you started at Deloitte a little more than 5 years ago, and Deloitte has actually like a pretty strong brand in the thought leadership space for a while, at least since the John Hagel Center for the Edge years. Talk to us about the state of play when you arrived, and about the impetus for change.
Yeah, you're right. There was not an issue. It wasn't a problem to fix. It's really and if you think about any organization, I doubt they're the same as they were 5 years ago. Like I'm sure your group is not the same as it was 5 years ago. It's an evolution. But 5 years ago, Deloitte was a more academic leaning publication. It was, great research, great substance. But the way the storytelling took place, the way the production took place was very print oriented. It was very Deloitte Insights. Well, Deloitte Insights was called something else at the time, but it was very US focused. It didn't really represent the whole global firm. Um, and but really it was driven by a sort of a print mentality from a production perspective, and also I would call it an inside out perspective from a editorial point of view. So what we did, and I say we because I joined at the same almost exact time, partners in this, in trying to modernize the everything we do to make it more like a modern digital first publication, and really driven by outside in thinking rather than inside out thinking. So that's really the impetus.
And I mean, I think it's interesting that you say that because you also doubled down on your print book, if I recall, at a moment when many other firms were abandoning the tangible book, the heft factor of the book, in favor of a digital only approach. And now we're seeing like what seems to be maybe a little mini resurgence of print with Microsoft Signal and so forth. I assume to manage for the glut of content in the marketplace and consequent overwhelm on the consumer side. How do you see print? Like, how did you make that decision earlier than many,
Yeah,
counterintuitively? And how do you see print continuing to function in your portfolio?
we love print. We started with the print redesign for a couple of reasons, and some of them are just very tactical reasons. It was the thing we had the most control over, for one thing. Um, and it was also the thing that we could really do quickly and then use as a model to then take to the digital world. So that was a sort of tactical decision, but also it's fun. Print is really fun, and it's something that our team really loves to do, and our design team really loves to do. And frankly, it's something special that we can do for clients because obviously digital anyone can have access to, but the print is client only or friends of the firm only.
Mhm.
So it's something special we can do for them. And then the challenge is how do we make it a little different from the experience that you can get online? So there's a lot of positives to take to focusing on print, but from our perspective, it was a very practical decision to start there and then build out to the more challenging aspects of the transformation.
And so talk about the more challenging aspects of the transformation. I know I've heard you say in the past that you pursued a fewer, bigger, better strategy. Tell us more, walk us through what you view as the more difficult parts to embark on and what the results have been.
Well, we're really trying to change the culture, and I think we've done a pretty good job of that as far as moving from an inside out perspective to an outside in perspective.
Mhm.
So we've put a lot of time and energy and resources into understanding who our readers are, what they care about, where we fit into their lives, and then serving them. So that actually, I mean, it's interesting. When I was at McKinsey, and I'm sure it's changed since then. I was there quite a while ago. It was a very inside out driven place. The partners really drove the agenda. When I got to The Economist, because it's actually a media company, it's very outside in driven. And I saw how that works and what the benefits were and sort of how to get at it. So I tried to sort of, when we came here, Elizabeth and I tried to bring those two worlds together in a way and try and find a ground that would work. Obviously, we're not going to ignore what the interests of the firm are, but we also want to really have deep insight into who our readers are and what they care about. Um, and as we went through the design process, particularly for online, we we designed the site experience to serve this very particular personas that we had developed in the course of our research. So that was a big change, and it's an ongoing change, but it's been really positive because now I'm sure everyone on this call has had these religious wars where you basically say, I think this, and someone else thinks that. And now we don't have to have those kinds of conversations. We can say, here's what our readers are telling us. We have that insight. That's a much better conversation than I think this is better than that.
Yes. So, as you can imagine, this is we daily are navigating between different pieces of anecdata. Or like,
Anecdata, I love that. Never heard
or,
that
you know,
before.
my client told me
Yeah.
that what we're doing is X, and someone else says, my client told me that what we're doing is Y. So how are you, I mean, measurement is hard, right? What's easiest to measure, historically at least, for us, not always what's best to measure, what's most relevant to measure, what's going to inform your strategy in the most
Yeah.
high impact way. So what are you doing to measure and gather these deep insights about who's reading Deloitte Insights?
Yeah, and to your point, it's not just anecdata about what our client said. It's also like, well, this thing got a lot of hits, so it must be good.
Right, exactly.
So,
Or we don't care about hits.
right, until
But
we do, until there's a lot of them, and then we care about them.
exactly, it's like
Right.
stalactites, stalagmites,
Yeah.
stalactites.
And
Yeah,
and I don't want to discount the insight that is just floating around the firm, right? That those anecdata points are actually worthwhile. So I don't want to completely discount them by any means. And the experience that our people on the ground have is hugely valuable. I mean, that's our secret sauce, right? So I'm not discounting it, but I also want to have more other things that we can bring into the mix. So we do focus groups, we do surveys, we do lots of independent research. We get obviously there's all the data that you get from the web, but that doesn't tell you, that tells you what's happening. It doesn't tell you why it's happening. So we want to build on that. There's we spend a lot of time thinking about what drives engagement, and we have some ways to think about that. Then we put all of that into the mix, right? And then we start to sort of we've created this little framework where we can take our articles and other pieces of content and put them in these different little two by two. Obviously, we're a consulting firm. We do two by twos, little two by two, and
nothing like a matrix at a
exactly,
consulting firm. Yeah.
exactly. So we can speak in the language of consulting, and it basically shows there's a lot of data behind it, but it basically shows how things are performing against how things are being engaged with. So you might have, for instance, something that is low performing, but getting a really good engagement. And so that's an underdog that's underutilized and underleveraged. So maybe we want to boost that because it's really for those who are seeing it, it's really doing well, but it's not being seen by a lot of people, right? You might have things that are not getting a lot of engagement and not getting a lot of traffic. So that's sort of neutral, right? Maybe you don't worry too much about that one. We have obviously the big winners, big traffic, great engagement. And then you have the problem children, which is big traffic, low sentiment, low engagement, low response. That means we're putting a lot of energy behind things that people are not liking. And that actually, so when you say like when somebody says, look at all the traffic it got, that's just one dimension of the arithmetic, right? So that could be a good thing, but it actually could be a bad thing. It could actually be harming your reputation.
Right.
It
Right.
may not be so well received. So that little matrix has really helped us have really good conversations about A, how to do better, and B, where there are little gems that we can bring forward.
And how do you measure engagement? Give us an example of how you measure engagement
There's
as
lots of
proxy for
different
quality.
components to it, and the our analytics team has a very sophisticated formula
Mm-hmm.
uh, for this. But one of the things we do, we work with a company called Notch, Knotch,
Yep.
And at the end of each of our articles, there's a little question, and it basically asks, "What did you think of this article?" And if it's a positive thing, then it asks you why, and if it's a negative thing, it asks you this, and really helps us in real time. Now, obviously, it's a little bit. You have to put a little asterisk on it because that means someone got to the end of the article, right? There could be plenty of people who
Right.
didn't enjoy the article and bailed out. So it's not black and white, but it's a sort of an easy data point for us to point to.
Yeah, it's one in a constellation of matrices. It's so tricky. Are you seeing, look, in our context now, anything, for example, on agentic AI-driven transformations is like, Aaron Judge stepping up to the plate. It's just like going right out of the park in terms of traffic. Other topics are much more targeted, much they're getting a little bit drowned out in some ways in terms of pure reach. How do you take that kind of topic driven um reach and engagement into context? Because the
Yeah,
exogenous disruption now is
yeah,
so
yeah.
massive, right?
Yeah, and we think about it a little differently. We think about it as there's general, quote unquote, general interest topics, and there's very specific, almost B2B trade type, you know, topics. So we have industry outlooks, for instance, that are really only interesting. They're hugely popular, but they're only interesting to the industry
Yeah, right.
versus topics like you say, AI or agentic, which are cross industry. And we think about them differently. We publish them differently. We promote them differently. We write them differently because you're writing for an expert audience versus a more general audience. Um, we have our site is actually organized to do that. So we have Deloitte Insights, sort of what we call Deloitte Insights proper, and then we have almost sub magazines for each industry.
Verticals. Yep.
And as part of our environment, but like in the old days before we did this redesign, everything was sort of thrown into the same mix, and you couldn't really tell the difference between something that was designed for someone who was just deep into auto versus more of a general business interest. So now we've really separated those things so the user experience is very different. And if that's what you care about and that's what you know and that's what you come to us for, it's an easy way to get there and find it and live in that space versus in the old days it was all just sort of put together in one place.
And when you are inevitably asked, I assume, to report on impact to Deloitte leadership, what are they looking for? What are the measures of impact that they're particularly looking for? Is it like client conversion or how does that work?
We're very lucky in that regard, honestly. The the partnership understands that what we're trying to do is build trust and credibility. It's relationship building. And they also understand, and we've helped them understand this because of all the research we've done, was where we fit into this relationship journey. So I don't think of it as a funnel anymore. But so Elizabeth, our brilliant editor-in-chief, came up with a framework that I'll share with you, which is basically learn from Deloitte, learn about Deloitte, and engage with Deloitte, right? So obviously we sit in the learn from Deloitte bucket.
That is a good mental model,
She
man.
is so smart.
Oh,
Right?
Elizabeth, that is very good.
She's
Yeah.
so
Okay.
smart. You should talk to her.
Yeah.
Actually, you shouldn't talk to her. I'm going to keep her to myself. Uh, but so you think about that mental model, right? And obviously we live in the learn from Deloitte. Our research tells us that people who learn from Deloitte eventually, not tomorrow, but eventually want to learn about Deloitte and eventually want to engage with Deloitte. Good, great. the opportunity, and I think our partnership really understands this, which is really nice for us, is that we do research. Our research can serve all three of those needs in different formats, in different ways, right? In different ways that they can come to life and serve those different needs. So you think about when we do our research, in the old days, it was like you did your research and you wrote a thing. And that thing was the thing. And it was a piece of thought leadership. We think of it as we're building a body of knowledge about this topic. What are all the different ways that we can bring that body of knowledge to life to serve those different parts of the relationship journey? And it's not a straight line. It's not like you go from one directly to the next, directly to the next. But what we've learned is that if you're not in the first one, you don't have any chance to be in the next two, whenever those next two happen. So, so that's kind of how we talk about it. And happily, we're not having conversations about how this piece of content led to this piece of business.
Yep. I want to just return to the matrix question for a second, because we have a question from the audience that requires a little bit of clarification, and I find that matrix very clever, so I want to be sure that folks are clear on it. Someone has asked if something is being well engaged with, doesn't that equate to high performing? I think what you were saying is yes, but it doesn't have the reach it should, and so we'll reinvest in promotion, but you clarify if that's.
That's right. That's right. So we might have something that is, people are telling us that this is a good piece in all kinds of ways. They're telling us this is a good piece, but not a lot of people are seeing it. It wasn't maybe promoted. Maybe it had a short shelf life. Maybe we just didn't think it was going to be so successful. So that's a little, we call those like an underdog, right? That we can then, this is nice. This is a good thing. People like this. Let's promote it on social. Let's bring it forward. Let's put it on the homepage. Maybe we would do a little paid search for it. Let's get more people to see it.
And another question following on learn from and learn about Deloitte. How are you tracking that? The question is, could you talk some more about the research you've undertaken, which showed that people who learn from Deloitte eventually want to learn about Deloitte? How are you tracking that journey?
We do a lot of, this is where we do focus groups and surveys and direct communication with our readers to understand how they use all of us. And they do use all of us. There's no idea that like they just come to Deloitte and they don't go to McKinsey or EY or, well, they go use all of us. But there is, what they tell us is there is a short list of trusted sources, whatever that short list is for them. And they go to all of them. Let's say they have a problem that they're trying to understand. They go to all of them. They get all of the information from you and from me and from whomever else. And they lay it all out, and then they build a little picture of the world based on that. They're not in buy mode. They're in, I have a problem mode. I want to understand something, or my boss needs a presentation. I have a client I need to impress. They're researching. They're not researching a service provider. They're researching a problem. Later, that thing may turn into a question that they need help with. When that happens, they go back to that trusted list of people who have helped them get smart about it. And that's when they engage with the firm. And then that's when they have to learn about our capabilities and see if we're the right fit for them. So it could be 6 months later, it could be 12 months later, it could be 18 months later, depending on what the problem is. But if you're not in that first group of credible, trusted sources, you're not going to be on the list when they are looking to learn about the firm.
Yeah, I just want to mention a little plug for our recently published book by my co advisory board members on the GTLI, Cindy Anderson and Anthony Marshall, the ROI of thought leadership. Folks should check that out. But they talk specifically in their research about having found that CXOs particularly have 5 sources. That set that you're describing typically comprises 5 credible sources that they'll trust and go to. So the key is to like crack into that 5 and stay there.
Yes, that's exactly what we're learning. But it's interesting now, and this is a question, and I'm conflicted about this, but with AI, I don't need to go to 5 sources because
Yeah,
AI is going to do that for me,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
then how does that change the dynamic? Not the dynamic of this relationship journey, but how does that change? It's intermediary. It's disintermediating my relationship with that reader, right? So how does that going to change our position? And how does that, if what we're trying to build is a relationship, we're trying to build trust, we're trying to build credibility, how do we do that in a world where something is basically aggregating those 5 trusted sources for us?
Yeah, so let's turn to AI because it is, especially with agentic, it's just like changing the space so quickly. And I think we're all trying to determine how best to use AI end to end across our portfolio. So given that it's, a big X factor and we're in the middle of a lot of uncertainty and change. How are you integrating AI into your publishing at Deloitte? Is AI changing what you do and how you do it?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I just want to say I'm really conflicted on this topic. So you help me, please help me. Um, I I'm not a Luddite. I love the tools. We're using them in all
You've
kinds
been
of,
like you've been in the tech publishing industry space at least since
yeah.
like pre-Netscape, I feel
Yes.
like.
And don't age me, but it's true. And
You're like the Kara Swisher of thought leadership. You've been in it
every good
forever.
thing that has happened in my career has been because I've leaned into those opportunities.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. So,
yeah,
but I'm very nervous about this one. I
yeah.
want to lean into it and still stay nervous. So, I will not be coherent on this. So
Hmm.
help me
Yeah,
organize my thinking. There's
yeah.
a few things. One is there's lots of tools that we're using where the firm is developing all kinds of tools. We're all going to be using all these tools, and at some point they're all going to be embedded in our enterprise systems, and they're going to get better and better. On the creation side, I worry about losing our distinctiveness,
Right.
right? Um, and on the discovery side, I worry about losing our direct relationship with our readers. So I think the answer to both of those things is almost the same. It's in the same solution space, um, which is we need to understand what the experience is on the Gen AI platforms. We need to really understand it. And then we need to lean into the things that we do way better than Gen AI. So Gen AI is great at organizing known information. We're really good at actually creating new information. Can we move the story forward? Right? I mean, we don't always do that, but that's always our aspiration. Can we move it forward? Can we create some new knowledge?
Mhm.
The other thing, obviously, is that we are a trusted brand. Maybe this will get better over time, maybe it'll get worse over time, but right now, any thinking person would have some questions about what they're reading on the platforms.
Mhm.
It's fine if your margin of error is big, if you're asking it to set your itinerary for your vacation. It's not fine if you're going to take these numbers and go to your board or go to a client or go to your key stakeholders within your organization. That's not fine.
Right.
So the fact that our data matters in a way that some other kinds of data matters less is important, and that we're trusted. And then the last thing, and this is kind of where we need to do the most work, is leaning into our humanity. I mean, we're actually the people who are on the ground, shoulder to shoulder with people and the biggest companies in the world, working on the biggest problems in the world. I don't think that comes through enough in our current work. It's something that we can do better at. And it's an important distinction to bringing more of humanity. You know, we're in the relationship business. So just think about your personal relationships. What you want to like the people, right? You want to trust the people, that you want them to be credible. You want them to be interesting. You want them to be fun, right? You want that's the same. That's the same who you do business with. It's the same who you read. So I think we have to lean into all those things. At the same time, we can't, we have to leverage the platforms as a source of distribution. So we have to think through that as well. So I don't have the answer. I'm really working my way through this. Right now, from this outside in idea, we're embarking on a lot of research around how our readers are using AI for business purposes, how we fit, how it's changing. We're doing a lot of data analysis. We're starting to see some sourcing from the platforms show up on our site. What does that look like? How is that different from sourcing that's coming from elsewhere?
Mhm.
Actually seems more engaged, which is interesting.
Mhm.
Um,
That is
we're
interesting.
just starting a deep research, and then we're going to try and develop a strategy around this. But my hypothesis is that we have to have an experience that complements and supplements the Gen AI platforms. It doesn't repeat the experience of the Gen AI platforms.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm just thinking, so you've sort of described, right, like upstream research and ideation. And then there's the part where, like, is it making you more efficient as you actually develop and produce the thought leadership? And then there's this like surfacing and discoverability piece. And then there's the way that users engage with the content. So it's sort of like it's disruptive end to
Everywhere.
end.
It's everywhere.
It's
And then you look
everywhere.
at it and you go like, this is amazing, right? You
It's
look
amazing. I know.
like you go, this is some kind of crazy magic trick. It's like, wait, there's a
Yeah.
dog walking on its hind legs all the way down Fifth Avenue. That's that's amazing.
Also juggling. Yeah.
Right, right. And you go like, that's amazing. And then you go, well, but it's a dog walking down Fifth Avenue, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So
You know,
yeah,
it's interesting. I just was in a discussion I observed a discussion between a Harvard Business School professor and some of our agentic and AI experts talking about some research. And the professor was describing a use case which he said is like happening now and will just happen super quickly, like a very immediate to near term use case in which executives, they may want that like PDF leave behind that folks bring in, or like your beautifully designed, I'd say it's beautifully designed Deloitte Insights book. But what they're going to do is use an agent to have a conversation about like, okay, what's in that addresses my issue on X, and
yeah,
what are some examples of how they've done this in the past? And the agent will give them the response, will,
yeah,
ingest the information, give them the responses, which is just a completely different interaction model than
yes,
we're accustomed to. And it requires that upstream research and content development,
yeah,
may actually require it for like ease of ingestion by the AI agent
yeah,
versus like, a beautiful lexical turn of phrase, right? Like, or whatever. It's
Totally.
just, it's very, it's
Yeah. So,
disruptive
and then
and
we might
interesting.
get to the point where there's just no, like, no human goes to the web. It's all just gets sucked in and delivered to you in some summarized way. We might get to that point, but we're not at that point yet, and we have a ways to go. The I was just having an email exchange with some folks on my team about this because they were talking about exactly that. Like, how do you optimize your pages to be ingested by AI? And there's a lot of best practices to being developed now about that, and some of them are fine, totally fine. But my guidance was we want to be there, 100% want to be there, but we don't want to over-index at the expense of human readers.
Right.
So when we have a forced choice right now, we're going to err on the side of human readers. That may change, that may flip over time, and we'll err on the side of the bots. But right now we're here to serve our readers
For sure.
first and foremost. So that's who we're going to serve.
It's similar to search engine optimization, right? Like you could optimize for search by putting the same phrase in
Right,
every
right, right,
campaign.
right.
But
Right.
no one's going to engage with that, or
And also a lot of the
few
best
readers.
practices are designed for people who are selling things, right?
Yeah.
And we're not selling things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a little different, but where it's going to go, I'm sure over time it's going to switch, and we're going to be serving the bots. But we have a long way to go for that.
Agree. So, just on this question of SEO and discoverability, are you seeing AI disrupt search referrals to your website? Are you seeing the effect of that on reach already, or
Uh,
not yet? And how are
it's
you
not
managing?
affecting our reach, but it is affecting where our referrals are coming from. So our search referrals are down,
Mhm.
and AI sources are up. They're not big, but they're up. One of the things I want to understand is, so that's, when you see a referral from Gen AI, that means they went to Gen AI and then they went directly from there to us.
Mhm.
That's good. Um, I suspect, but I don't know, that there's a lot of people who learn about us from Gen AI and then come to us later. It's a
Yeah.
broken experience.
Right. So you'd
But
see an increase in the direct visits to
so
your
it's part
site.
of what we want to understand
Okay.
better is that dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there's no question it's changing.
Mhm.
Are you seeing that too?
Oh yeah, we are seeing a fairly significant decline in search-driven referrals. We had done a lot. We've got this amazing expert in SEO who's done a lot to help us optimize and increase search referred traffic.
Mhm.
And we almost immediately started seeing declines once Gen AI began to significantly disrupt search. So it's interesting. It's an interesting moment. What about formats? Are you using AI to kind of accelerate or accelerate like new formats or derivative content, or to rethink your
Um,
format portfolio?
Actually, we're well, yeah, in a way. I mean, we're using it a little bit for sort of what they call atomizing content, so that
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. We're not using it to create content. I think that's really a race to the bottom for us.
Mm-hmm.
But what we are doing, one of the things we're to the point about being more human is that we are increasing our focus on video. Not to use AI tools, although we have no problem with using AI tools, but it's more to bring our humanity forward in a format that is um, brings all of our, you know, interesting people to the mix in a way that it doesn't really happen in with text-based content. Um, and simultaneously, we're focusing on video because our readers told us that they like video. So, um, We just started a YouTube channel. Oh, it's brand new. It's just getting started. And our year, which starts now in June,
Mhm.
this year is going to be a pretty big focus on video.
So that's super interesting because we also hear that our audience likes video. And obviously there's an imperative to develop durable relationships now with kind of next gen executives who have been reared on video and go to video first. We don't see massive uptake on our video, quite frankly. So we're not seeing it in the data. What we see is that not on our YouTube channel, but on our website, folks might look at a little bit of the video to get a sense of who the person is, and then they read the transcript and they'll engage deeply with the transcript. And sometimes even like there's a higher download rate for the PDFs of these transcripts than there is for the average transcript. But like they don't actually engage as much with the video itself. It's just like to get a taste or flavor of what the person is like, and then it's more efficient for them to consume either like audio in an audio format where they can multitask, or just like skim in text.
Yeah.
Are you
I
seeing
like the way you had a format. I don't know if you still do it. You had a format where you'd have like an article and then you'd have like embedded
Yes, we do that.
like
Yes.
a minute of somebody talking.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really like that. I thought that was really good. And that's a really great use of video. It just brings the thing to life. It brings the person to life. It's not a big investment in my time.
Mhm.
I really that's a great format.
Mhm.
But
Okay, I'm getting the warning. Let me just look here. There's a question on content marketing. What kinds of content marketing do you use to make thought leadership outputs more digestible for audiences? Are you working, how closely do you work with the marketing team?
we are not part of the marketing team, but we work closely with the marketing team. We have marketers associated with all of our different industries, and we also have a content marketing team that takes our content and rethinks it for other publications that are, paid content marketing.
Mhm.
Um, but we don't directly do content marketing.
And how do you determine, so Deloitte has that new marketing campaign, or I don't know if you describe it as a marketing campaign. There are
Yeah.
different ways of describing things together,
Uh,
make progress. What's the relationship between that campaign and the way you allocate resources on your side to develop research-driven content? How much coordination and alignment is there between marketing and thought leadership upstream?
There's not a lot of marketing doesn't come to us and say we're doing such and such. We need such and can you do research on such and such? But we, like for instance, Together Makes Progress, which is the new tagline for Deloitte. First tagline in 180 years.
Really?
Yeah. We have lots and lots of articles that underscore the value of together, progress, and makes, right? So we've given them lots of content that they can use to as part of their campaign. So we have a lot of back and forth, a lot of collaboration, but it's not driven by marketing. But we're viewed as an asset that marketing can use to augment their campaigns.
Okay.
It's a win-win. It's good for us
Yeah,
too.
it's great. Yeah. Okay, we are unfortunately at time. As I said, I could talk to Jeff, for many hours. Thank you so much for making the time to
Oh,
join
what a
us
treat.
today,
Thank
Jeff.
you. This is the only way I get to see you.
We have to have lunch or drinks.
So,
And again, for more about upcoming events hosted by the Global Thought Leadership Institute, including future upcoming webinars, visit the APQC website at apqc.org/GTLI, or easy, follow us on LinkedIn. You can also subscribe to our weekly GTLI newsletter for highlights of the best thought leadership of the moment, including Deloitte's, particularly interesting during these uncertain times. Have a great evening or day, depending on where you are. There are some of you in Europe, I see, and be well.